Welcome to Shadows of History, where we uncover the mysteries, conspiracies, and forgotten truths of the past. Subscribe now for more stories that challenge what you thought you knew about history. The Roman Empire, one of the greatest civilizations in human history. Its legions conquered vast lands, its emperors ruled with unmatched power, and its culture shaped much of the modern world. But behind the marble columns, golden statues, and grand arenas, there were shadows the history books rarely reveal. Dark secrets lurked in the corridors of palaces, beneath the blood-soaked sands of the Colosseum, and in the whispered schemes of senators plotting in the dead of night that we are often told of Rome's glory, its architecture, its law, its military genius. But the Roman Empire was also a place of corruption, betrayal, and cruelty beyond imagination. Emperors who proclaimed themselves gods while bathing in the blood of their enemies. Senators who traded loyalty for bribes. Generals who slaughtered entire populations to fuel the expansion of Rome. And citizens who cheered as men were torn apart by wild beasts, their screams echoing through the stadiums as entertainment. Take Emperor Nero, for example, remembered not as a builder, but as a destroyer. Legend says he watched Rome burn while playing his lyre, blaming Christians for the fire he may have ordered himself. Or Caligula, whose madness knew no bounds, who crowned his horse a consul and ordered executions on a whim, turning fear into a weapon of absolute control. These are not just stories of eccentric rulers, they are glimpses into how absolute power corrupted even the most powerful men on earth, but the darkness of Rome was not only in the emperors. It was in the empire's very foundations. The wealth of Rome was built on the backs of slaves, millions of men, women, and children taken from conquered lands, stripped of freedom, and forced into labor. Gladiators fought not for honor, but for survival, their lives reduced to bloody spectacles that kept the masses entertained. Behind every victory parade in the streets of Rome were the cries of those who had been conquered, silenced by history. And what about the secret societies, the cults, and the forbidden rituals that thrived in the shadows? Beneath Rome's polished surface, strange practices and hidden religions spread, some worshipping gods of chaos, others plotting to undermine the empire from within. Few dare to speak of the whispered poisonings, the forbidden romances, the emperors who disappeared without a trace, or the endless conspiracies that toppled leaders in the blink of an eye. Rome was a world of contrasts, breathtaking beauty and unimaginable horror, brilliant innovation and ruthless brutality. It was an empire that built roads stretching across continents but also bathed its streets in blood. A place that gave us philosophy, art, and architecture, but also cruelty, decadence, and destruction. That I end this series, we will peel back the layers of history and step into the shadows of Rome. Not the Rome of textbooks and school lessons, but the Rome that lived in fear, in darkness, and in the secrets they never wanted you to know. From the madness of emperors to the brutality of gladiatorial games, from the secret cults hidden in the catacombs to the betrayals that shattered dynasties, we will uncover the truth about the empire that called itself eternal, yet was built on foundations destined to crumble. Prepare yourself. This is not just the story of Rome's glory, it is the story of its secrets. Secrets of lust, power, murder, and betrayal. Secrets that echo even today, reminding us that behind every empire's shining facade lies a darkness it cannot escape. So, are you ready to discover the side of Rome they never told you about? When we think of Rome's rise, we imagine bravery, discipline, and an unstoppable army marching across Europe, Africa, and Asia. But hidden beneath the polished image of Roman greatness were shadows that grew alongside its power. From the very beginning, Rome was forged in both ambition and blood. The early republic prided itself on freedom, yet that freedom came at a cost. Rome's victories filled its coffers with gold, but its streets with slaves, men, women, and children torn from their homelands. While Roman citizens enjoyed spectacles, theaters, and luxuries, enslaved people lived lives of suffering, building the empire brick by brick. Rome's greatness, in truth, rested on chains. Even within the Senate, the so-called guardians of Roman democracy, corruption spread like poison. Bribes determined policies, alliances shifted overnight, and senators traded loyalty for personal gain. Assassination became a tool of politics, a shadowy reminder that power in Rome was never secure. Julius Caesar himself, perhaps the most famous Roman of all, fell victim to betrayal in the Senate, stabbed by men who claimed to act for the Republic but were truly motivated by fear of his rising power. Then came the emperors. With the fall of the Republic, Rome's darkness deepened. Emperors presented themselves as divine rulers, but behind the marble statues lay paranoia, cruelty, and lust for absolute control. They built monuments and staged games not just to entertain the people but to keep them distracted from the corruption rotting at the empire's core. Public life thrived on spectacle, bloody gladiatorial games, executions, and extravagant feasts where excess replaced honor. While the common people cheered for bread and circuses, Rome's elite plotted in shadows, securing their wealth while the empire's foundations grew unstable. This was the hidden side of Rome's rise, a world where brutality and betrayal walked hand in hand with power and ambition. The empire's greatness was undeniable, but so was the cost, paid in blood, suffering, and silence by those who had no voice in history. Rome may have conquered the world, but in doing so, it also unleashed a darkness that would haunt it for centuries to come. Power in Rome was absolute. And when absolute power was placed in the hands of unstable rulers, the results were terrifying. Some emperors left legacies of wisdom and reform, but others plunged into madness so deep that the empire itself trembled. Caligula, for instance, is remembered not for leadership but for cruelty and insanity. He declared himself a living god, forced citizens to worship him, and staged lavish games where prisoners were executed for his amusement. He even appointed his favorite horse, Incitatus, as a consul, mocking the very foundations of Roman politics. His paranoia drove him to order random executions, turning the palace into a place of fear where no one felt safe. Then came Nero, whose name has become synonymous with tyranny. Legend says he fiddled while Rome burned, though in truth, he may have played his lyre as the city was engulfed in flames. Whether he started the fire or not, he certainly exploited the disaster, blaming Christians and ordering mass executions. Nero also built a golden palace upon the ashes of Rome, a symbol of his self-indulgence while ordinary citizens suffered. Domitian, another feared emperor, filled his reign with paranoia. He demanded to be called master and god, executed senators on suspicion alone, and filled the city with spies. His reign left behind a legacy of fear, where even the highest officials could be destroyed overnight. These emperors reveal the dark truth. Rome's greatest danger often came not from foreign enemies but from within its own walls. The people who were meant to protect the empire often brought it to its knees with madness, cruelty, and corruption. The imperial palace was not just a symbol of power, it was a theater of fear, and yet, the empire survived. Rome endured the whims of its mad rulers because its people were distracted with bread, circuses, and fear. As long as the games continued and the army stayed loyal, even the cruelest emperors could cling to power. But beneath the surface, every act of madness chipped away at Rome's strength, leading it slowly toward decline. The madness of the emperors was more than personal corruption, it was a reflection of the empire itself, powerful, magnificent, but dangerously unstable. Few images of Rome are as iconic, or as horrifying, as the gladiatorial games. To many, the Colosseum represents Roman greatness, but to those who fought within its walls, it was nothing more than a prison of blood and sand. Gladiators were often slaves, prisoners of war, or condemned criminals. Stripped of freedom, they were trained to fight for survival, their lives reduced to public entertainment. The crowd's cheers determined their fate. Victory could bring fleeting glory, while defeat often meant death. A single gesture from the emperor's hand could spare a life or condemn it, turning human existence into a spectacle. The brutality was staggering. Men fought men, but also wild beasts imported from across the empire: lions, tigers, bears, and even elephants. Exotic animals were slaughtered in staged hunts, while thousands of gladiators perished in the name of spectacle. Blood was the price of Roman entertainment, and the Colosseum became a graveyard of forgotten names, but the darkness of the games ran even deeper. For Rome's rulers, gladiatorial combat was more than entertainment, it was a tool of control. The games distracted the masses from corruption and poverty, keeping them pacified with bread and circuses. Citizens cheered the violence, forgetting their hunger and hardships, while the elite secured their power. There were, however, rare moments of rebellion. Some gladiators earned fame, like Spartacus, who led a massive slave uprising that shook Rome to its core. His revolt revealed the fragile foundations of the empire, reminding Rome that even its most oppressed could rise against it. Though ultimately crushed, Spartacus's defiance left a mark in history as a symbol of resistance against tyranny. For every Spartacus, though, thousands more died unnamed, their blood soaking the sands of arenas across the empire. To Rome, they were disposable. To history, they became silent witnesses to the empire's darkest hunger, the desire to turn suffering into spectacle. The Colosseum still stands today, a magnificent ruin visited by millions. But behind its ancient stone arches lingers a haunting truth: it was not just a monument of engineering, but a monument of cruelty, built on blood. If the Colosseum was Rome's theater of blood, the Senate was its theater of betrayal. Behind the polished marble and grand speeches, Roman politics was a game of daggers, poison, and endless conspiracies. From the earliest days of the Republic, power in Rome was never safe. Senators bribed, schemed, and assassinated their way into influence. Ambition was the currency of politics, and loyalty could vanish overnight. Julius Caesar's assassination remains the most infamous betrayal, stabbed 23 times by men he once called friends, under the very roof of the Senate. His death revealed what every Roman already knew: in politics, trust was an illusion, but Caesar was not alone. Emperors and senators alike lived in constant fear of poison, the silent weapon of choice for Rome's ambitious. Dishes of food and cups of wine could be laced with deadly substances, ending lives before suspicions could even take root. Entire dynasties rose and fell on whispers of betrayal. The Julio-Claudian dynasty, for example, was soaked in intrigue. Empress Livia, wife of Augustus, was rumored to have used poison to clear the path for her son Tiberius to ascend the throne. Later, Agrippina the Younger, Nero's mother, allegedly poisoned her husband, Emperor Claudius, ensuring Nero's rise to power. Ironically, Nero himself would eventually turn on Agrippina, ordering her assassination in one of Rome's most chilling tales of family betrayal. Even the Senate itself became a dangerous place. Senators plotted against emperors, and emperors struck back with purges. One accusation could destroy an entire household. Under Domitian, spies filled the city, listening for treasonous whispers. Fear ruled more strongly than law. Rome's history is filled with great speeches, reforms, and laws, but its true engine was ambition sharpened by betrayal. Poisoned cups, midnight conspiracies, and whispered plots were as much a part of Rome as its legions and monuments. This was the empire's hidden truth: power was never secure, and trust was the deadliest illusion of all. While Rome projected itself as a land of order, law, and discipline, beneath the surface thrived a world of shadows, secret cults, forbidden rituals, and strange gods that whispered in the dark corners of the empire. Rome was a melting pot of religions. As its armies conquered new lands, they absorbed the gods and beliefs of the conquered. Most were tolerated, but some cults operated in secrecy, bound by rituals so mysterious that even today they remain shrouded in myth. The cult of Bacchus, the god of wine and ecstasy, was one such shadow. What began as harmless celebrations soon turned into secret night gatherings filled with frenzied dances, intoxication, and whispered oaths. Roman authorities grew alarmed, accusing the Bacchic cults of plotting against the state. In 186 BCE, the Senate cracked down, banning their rites and executing many followers. But whispers of their gatherings never fully disappeared. Even more secretive were the mystery religions of Egypt and the East. The cult of Isis promised eternal life through devotion, attracting thousands of Romans who longed for spiritual comfort beyond the harshness of daily life. These initiations, often performed in hidden temples, were said to involve symbolic death and rebirth, granting followers a sense of divine connection outsiders could not understand. Then there was Mithras, the god of soldiers. His cult spread through the legions, worshipped in underground chambers called Mithraea. Rituals included animal sacrifices, symbolic feasts, and tests of endurance. Membership was secretive, restricted to men, and bound by vows of loyalty that rivaled even devotion to Rome itself. For the ruling elite, these cults were dangerous, not only because of their secrecy, but because they drew loyalty away from the emperor and the traditional Roman gods. Rome feared anything that united people outside of its control. And so, followers of forbidden faiths faced persecution, torture, and death, yet the popularity of these secret religions revealed a deeper truth. The Roman people were searching for meaning in a world dominated by power and corruption. Beneath the marble temples and state ceremonies, they turned to hidden gods and forbidden rituals for comfort, strength, and hope. That in Rome, belief was more than worship, it was rebellion, survival, and in many cases, a secret too dangerous to speak aloud. The Roman Empire prided itself on law, order, and civilization. Yet beneath the grandeur of its marble cities was a society built on cruelty. Rome's strength came not only from discipline and conquest, but from a willingness to use fear and brutality as tools of control. Slavery was the cornerstone of Roman life. Millions of men, women, and children were bought and sold like property. They worked the fields, built the aqueducts, and entertained in the arenas. Their suffering fueled the empire's prosperity, yet they were denied identity, dignity, and freedom. To Rome, they were disposable tools. Public punishments were equally brutal. Crucifixion, the most infamous, was designed not only to kill but to humiliate and terrorize. Victims hung for hours, sometimes days, as their agony became a warning to others. Executions were often staged as entertainment, with criminals thrown to beasts or burned alive before cheering crowds. Rome called it justice. History remembers it as cruelty. The moral decay extended beyond punishments. The empire's elite indulged in excess while the poor struggled to survive. Lavish feasts overflowed with exotic dishes, peacock tongues, flamingo brains, rare wines, while beggars starved outside palace gates. Decadence became a symbol of power, and morality was drowned in indulgence. Even within families, betrayal was common. Brothers turned on brothers, mothers poisoned sons, and emperors executed their own kin to protect power. Bloodlines that should have united Rome instead fractured it with paranoia and suspicion. What made Rome's cruelty most dangerous was that it became normalized. Violence was not hidden in shadows, it was celebrated in arenas and written into law. The people, desensitized by constant spectacles of blood, accepted cruelty as part of daily life. Compassion was weakness, and mercy was rare. This fall of morality was not just a symptom of Rome's power, it was one of the causes of its downfall. Empires built on fear may rise quickly, but they cannot last forever. Rome's cruelty made it strong in the short term, but in the long run, it eroded the very foundations of its society. Rome may have given the world great achievements in architecture, law, and culture, but it also left behind a legacy of darkness, a reminder of how easily power can corrupt morality, and how quickly civilization can descend into brutality. Every empire believes it will last forever. Rome called itself the Eternal City, but even the mightiest walls cannot withstand the weight of corruption, cruelty, and decay. The fall of Rome was not a single event but a slow unraveling, an empire collapsing under the weight of its own darkness. By the 3rd century, cracks had spread across the empire. Corruption ate away at the Senate, emperors rose and fell in rapid succession, and civil wars drained Rome's strength. Armies once loyal to the empire turned on each other, fighting for rival claimants to the throne. Power was no longer about service to Rome, but about who could seize control by force. Meanwhile, the people grew weary. The promise of bread and circuses could no longer hide the hunger and poverty spreading across the land. Heavy taxes crushed farmers, inflation devalued the currency, and once thriving cities fell into decline. The very system that had kept the people distracted began to fail, exposing the corruption of those in power. Barbarian invasions were the final blow, but they were not the true cause of Rome's fall. They were the consequence of an empire already weakened from within. The Goths, Vandals, and Huns exploited Rome's divisions, breaking through its defenses and plundering its treasures. In 476 CE, the Western Roman Empire fell, its last emperor dethroned, a symbolic end to centuries of domination, yet Rome never truly disappeared. Its shadows lingered in the systems it left behind. Roman law influenced modern justice, Roman roads became the foundations of Europe, and Roman architecture still inspires awe. But so too did Rome's darker legacies survive: corruption in politics, the use of fear to control, and the obsession with power at any cost. The story of Rome is not just about greatness, it is a warning. It shows us how ambition without morality leads to collapse, how cruelty disguised as strength destroys from within, and how even the most powerful empires are not immune to time and corruption. Rome fell, but its secrets remain. And in those secrets, we find not only the story of the past but a mirror of our own world today. If history's dark side fascinates you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. More untold stories are coming your way.